Hello again. Welcome to the Introduction to Religions podcast for Southern New Hampshire University. This is the second podcast and serves as your transition from Module 2 into Module 3. Let's start off by saying that you did another excellent job on the discussion board this week. Your discussion of karma and reincarnation as it relates to Sikhism, Hinduism, and Jainism was, very, very good. And not only do you do a good job with the actual topics, but I also think you did a good job of, how do I say this, dealing with me being annoying. I guess I sort of feel that that's my job on the discussion board posts. I read yours and I kind of poke my head in here and there to ask some prodding questions or to challenge certain things. And I think the more annoyed you're getting with me, the better. That's a good thing. So hopefully my questions are making you think and are being seen by you as something that's valuable and helping you to navigate these topics a little bit better. And as you could tell probably from the discussion board, if you bounced around a lot, there are sort of a few basic directions that or at least, I would say directions or pathways that I wanted the discussions to take, and they did. But my questions are geared toward highlighting certain bits of information that I think are relevant, and I just at least want to be considered throughout the unit. And those basic things are, the question of whether or not a passionless life or an ascetic life can lead to enlightenment, or if that's better as a path to enlightenment is one question. Another question is, what's the whole deal with karma in Jainism? This whole idea of a spiritual particle that is a material entity, though it be very small, I think is an interesting concept. And I think it needs to be, challenged and explored. Also the question of personal identity. If karma and reincarnation is real, how can we retain personal identity from one incarnation to the next? That's a question I hope that we could address. And then maybe generally, what's your general take on karma and reincarnation? Do you think it's real? Is there any basis for it? Or do you think there's value in thinking that way? So I hope that through all of our critical analyses of the topic, that we were able to come to some understanding on each of these topics that I've just mentioned a little bit better. And it's worth noting, I think I did talk about it in somebody's post, in somebody's discussion thread, that pantheism in general is foreign to us, most of us anyway. A lot of people in the Western tradition aren't as familiar with the idea of pantheism. They're more familiar with monotheism and polytheism as they've been taught about European, or early, ancient European mythology. But pantheism, of course, as you know, is the idea that God is everything and everything is God. Another way of thinking about that is to say that God is the only substance that exists. There's only one thing that exists anywhere, and it's God. And naturally, as a consequence of that, of course, I see these books behind me. I see myself in the mirror, and I see my dog and trees and all kinds of things like that. Things appear to have to be multiple. The multiplicity is part of the appearance. So of course that's why the belief in pantheism implies that this appearance of multiplicity is an illusion. And enlightenment, of course. Well, before I talk about enlightenment, I'll say that pantheism implies not only that God is the only thing that exists, but all the other things that exist, like me, my dog, and the trees, are all modalities or modes of the divine substance. So you could think of it like branches on a single tree, or parts of a body. I'm but one finger in the hand of God, or something like that. Now, what's interesting here is that enlightenment, if you're a pantheist, means coming to the realization of what we've just talked about, coming to realize that I am just a part of God, and that's all I am. I don't have any real personal identity. There is no I. There is only the divine substance. Now, many could say, okay, well, what's the big deal about realizing that? Okay, you believe it, and you say, okay, this is how it is. Why am I not free of the karmic cycle and absorbed back into the divine substance all of a sudden? Well, you can say you know it, you can say you believe it, but personally, to truly let go of the world and really spiritually and intellectually and emotionally commit to the idea that you don't, properly speaking, exist is a very difficult thing to do. It reminds me of the kind of spiritual awakening that had to happen to Neo in the movie The Matrix. He was shown everything. He was given rational argument upon rational argument about how the world he was living in wasn't real. And even when he went back into the Matrix, he knew he could do certain things, but he hadn't really realized. He hadn't come to the moment of realization where his entire being was was completely filled with the enlightenment of who he was, and that the Matrix wasn't entirely real. It's kind of along those lines. I mean, that's a poor analogy, but it's the best I got right now. So, you've done a good job, I think, exploring pantheism and pantheistic religion. If you're doing it for the first time, then that's even better. So that kind of wraps up Hinduism and Module 2 and that question. We're going to be moving now to Buddhist tradition, and we're going to be talking a lot about suffering. Suffering is a very important notion and a very important concept in the Buddhist tradition. And as we move forward in this module, I want you to keep in mind the historical relationship between Buddhism and Hinduism, and see how that might inform your judgments, and what you can sort of, it might help you understand certain parts of Buddhism to know that it came from Hinduism, and vice versa. You might have there's new sects of Hinduism now that have borrowed Buddhist practices, and there's all kinds of borrowing and transmission of tradition back and forth. So just pay close attention to the relationship between these two religions, and I think it'll help understand Buddhism a lot. So, okay, that's it. Make sure that you bring your A game to the discussion board this week, because it's going to be a doozy. And I, as always, will see you there.